Hello everybody, Zendaf here, and today I bring you DCS World. And we're going to do a tutorial on how to start up the various aircraft. I own the A-10 and the KA-50, as well as this SU-25T here, which comes free with DCS World itself. The other two you have to buy as separate modules from either Steam or their website. Sorry about the frames there. My PC's not brilliant at rendering this game and recording at the same time. But we shall go through the startup procedure for this aircraft. For those of you interested in starting out in the game, the SU-25 is fairly easy to fly and minimal management required. I use mouse and keyboard for all of my my flying. I do not yet own a joystick. Although the aircraft do fly better with one, you don't need one. I even fly the A-10 with mouse and keyboard. It's a little bit more challenging. Helicopters you probably will need a joystick just for the constant fine control you need over the that particular aircraft. However, you can pick joysticks up for fairly cheap. I ordered a Sci-Tech T-Flight hot-ass joystick for £40 on Amazon. So there's a needless plug. Right, we shall get straight to it. You can use the mouse to look around. This aircraft at the moment does not have a clickable cockpit, so there's nothing to do with the mouse other than to look around. You can also use the numpad to look around, but I wouldn't recommend it. It's a bit awkward. So let's get started. First off, you'll need to turn on the electronics, which is right shift and L, and that starts all the power up. Everything aligns, and we're going to start by closing the canopy because, well, starting the engines up is fairly noisy and it is also windy, although not that windy. And that is left control and C, and that shuts that over. Right, next is the engines. I don't need to change my loadout or anything. You can only change loadout and repair your aircraft whilst you are parked off the runway, and your engines need to be completely off and not spinning, otherwise the ground crew won't come and help you out. Press F2 and we can get an external view of the aircraft. I have a loadout on here and some targets out in the range. Well, I say range, it's an abandoned airfield. To change loadout, you can press the communications button. You can do it through, you can press left alt and apostrophe, there it is, yep, apostrophe. And that's the loadout I've got. I got equal in flare and chaff, only 86% fuel because, well, as you can see, I'm already over the maximum weight, but it'll still take off. Jamming pods, you need both jamming pods for them to work. I don't actually know about the effectiveness of the jamming pods because I've never been shot at by a radar missile. They don't help against IR. Got some rocket pods, laser guided missiles, the Vickers laser guided missiles, and a pair of TV missiles, and a Mercury low light TV pod because it's just easier to see targets through it. You can also do it through the. You can also change your loadout and fuel through the communications menu. You press the hash key. Because I'm using, this is a British keyboard, and then F8 for ground crew and rearm and refuel, or you can request repair there. But let's start the plane up. Now, you can either start both engines at the same time, or you can do it one after the other. It doesn't matter which way you go. To start both engines up, you press right shift and home, but for individual engine start, left engine is right alt and home. As you see there on the dial, the engine RPM starts up and the start left light comes on, and you can't see it, but the engine's spooling up. You can barely see the turbine in there spinning, and the back turbine spinning there. As that starts up, and we have the airfield. You're supposed to, for realism, you're supposed to ask the tower for startup, but I don't bother. You're also supposed to request taxiing to the runway, but that's for realism's sake, and well, that's just proper procedure. It gets more necessary when there's other aircraft around. Right, we'll do the right engine now that it's spooled up and stable and idling. And the right engine is right control and home, and that will spool up as well. This aircraft does not take very long to start up, unlike the A-10, which takes at least 5 minutes. This one, you just start the engines and you're good to go. And let's see, I can get the old pointer up. This here, if you can see the pointer, I hope you can, it's the gauge with 2 white bars. That's the fuel level. And you've got left tank and right tank in the fuselage, and the weight of the fuel in pounds, I believe. I think. Yeah, this aircraft cannot take as much fuel as the A-10, so cannot stay out as long. However, it is quicker, and also has the ability to load anti-radar missiles. Here you got the RWR, which is the radar warning receiver. This will light up, showing you the direction of the threat, how big the threat is, basically how close you are to it. In the middle there you've got on which level it is to you. If you got the top one for above, bottom one for below, when they both light up it's about equal. And at the bottom you've got the type of threat, and these 2 circles there are whether they light up if it's behind you more than 90 degrees, or whether it's behind you, yeah, that'll do. Whether it's in the 90 degree arc behind you. But since I don't have anything on this mission that will ping me, that won't light up, and we don't need to deal with that. We've got the hydraulic pressure left and right, correspond to which engine, left engine, right engine. Each hydraulic powers various systems. Left hydraulic is in control of the flaps and gear, right is in control of the ailerons and the rudder, I believe. I hope I got that right. I'm sure someone will correct me if I didn't. And that's about it. This, I think it's this light here, lights up if you turn the ECM on. And that should be about it. Right, yeah, you got engine temperature, you got the loadout indicator, which weapon is active. You got your ILS here, and navigate, and compass, or heading compass I should say. Altitude meter. This is the barometric altitude. no, that one's radar altitude, that one's barometric altitude. And you've got your speed indicator here with the inner little ring there is your actual airspeed, whereas the outside one is your indicated airspeed. And you've got angle of attack and the G meter. And you've got gear status, flap status, air brake status. The light in the middle lights up when the gear is in. Gear lever there, and the throttle there. But we'll come to that in a second. And I forgot to mention this one. This is your climb meter and slip. So the yellow needle in the middle will lean to either side depending on which way you're rolling, and the little bubble at the bottom is your slip. So if you're rolling to the left, you'll also be slipping down to the left, or if there's strong winds, you might be slipping to either side depending on how strong the winds are. And it'll be engine RPM in a percentage rather than actual RPMs. At the moment it's idling about 32%. Right, and that's that. We are started up, and that's an overview of all the systems. Basically, you got Z and X is your rudder. It also does nose wheel steering when you're on the ground, and the throttle for taxiing. Oh, I'm already moving because I've moved the rudder. Air pressure and all that. Well, not air pressure, it's something else that I can't remember the name of. On the throttle you got the... Oh, get the mouse. The plus and minus keys on the numpad, and also page up and page down to do it in steps. So we shall taxi to the runway and take off, and that should conclude the tutorial. On startup anyway. I might do a tutorial on weapon deployment at some point. You won't need air brakes at the moment. I think that's just B. Yeah, there we go. Air brakes B. You push it and then push it again. Flaps are on F to bring them down. So one stage, that's maneuver, and that brings it, and F brings it back up. And if you press left shift and F, that should be down, and then left shift and left again is landing flaps. So the flaps at the back there, and you just press F to bring them back up. That should bring them all the way up. No, it shouldn't. I lied. That'll just bring it back to maneuver. You also have the gear button on G. I won't press it now because it won't work. If it does, I'll bottom out my aircraft. And we shall taxi. Should only need the first stage. This is idle, and I think that's ready. I'm not actually sure. I don't read Russian. But the second stage should get you rolling, albeit slowly. But I am fairly heavy. We will request taxi to runway. They will grant it, and it will be runway 21, I think. Yes, they should grant it. Go up to the third stage of engine to get us rolling some. Apparently Koblate doesn't want to talk to me. Probably because I'm on the Russian side, and the airfield might be on the American side, because that was the first plane I put down. So they won't talk to me anyway. But usually they would grant you permission to taxi to the runway, and they'll tell you which runway it is. The runway is the direction it faces for when you take off. This one, I believe, is 2-1. Right, we've got some speed back down to idle. W is wheel brakes to slow you down. And I'm going too quick. Ooh, almost rolled it. You don't want to go too quick, otherwise you'll roll it when you go around. I know this is runway 07. The wheel brakes aren't very effective when you're really heavy like this. And they're not effective enough to stop the aircraft when you're coming to land on its own anyway. The SU-25 also comes with a drag chute to help slow the aircraft down, and I'm losing frames looking down the runway whilst recording, which is annoying. We are lined up. We shall... that 15. Let's put it like that. Stop on the runway. And we shall put it down into manoeuvre flaps. And basically you just want full throttle. I like to hold the brakes until the aircraft gives. That way you get a little bit of a jump start. And basically just try and stay down the middle of the runway as you take off. You want your speed up. This might kill the frames. I'm doing 170. This is kilometers an hour. I think. Not actually sure. It's not knots, because the Russians don't believe in knots. When you get fast enough, I think I'm doing about 300 now. Yeah, that's indicated by the dial down there. Oh, I want to pull up, pull up, pull up, pull up, pull up. That'd be a good idea. Before you take off, or if we leave the runway, you want to pull up. And then we put the gear away by pressing G. As the lever goes up and the light goes on. There we are. And we're now in the air. And that is all there is to it. You can leave it in manoeuvre flaps if you like, otherwise you can bring those up and the aircraft will dip a little. As we see here, this is our indicated airspeed, this is our heading compass, this is our altitude. The R means we're in radar mode, as it gives you height off the floor, wherever the nearest bit of ground is underneath your aircraft. This is our climb rate, our rate of climb. This is our pitch heading. Currently we're about 20 degrees up, and this one here is our roll meter, this being 30 degrees, this being 60 degrees, and this is obviously our aircraft indication. This line being the horizon. See, now that we're high enough off the floor, the altitude is switched over to barometric. So that's height off sea level. And there we have it. We are now flying stable. We're doing about 400 kilometers an hour, which is a little quick. So we take that down 1 to level out our speed. Otherwise, you go too quickly, the aircraft will start to shake and get really awkward to control. This aircraft will do a lot more in terms of speed when you start unloading the munitions. When it gets lighter, you can get up to about 700 knots, which is a lot quicker than the A-10. You can not quick enough to outrun fighters, but quick in a dogfight. Although the turning circle isn't really good enough for dogfighting. Yes, that is how to start up and take off. I might cover landing as well while we're at it, actually. That'll be fun, especially with all this weight behind me. I might actually just eject the weapons. Yes, let's do that. Yeah, we won't fire them, we'll just get rid of them. Ejecting emergency ejected weapons is left control W. It starts with the outermost pylons first. It always does it in pairs. That's the rocket pods. That's my missile. That was my laser missile. My Vickers, and finally my TV missile. Press F6 to go into weapon flight mode. Since they're not actually flying, they're just falling, they'll flip about. There's the TV missiles. They are damn good at killing things, because everything else needs a constant laser lock until it hits, so you can't change target until the target you're looking at has been destroyed. Right, while we're at it, let's ask Kobaletti to see if I can land, which I can't. Good, they didn't want me to take off. Where's the nearest airfield? Batumi, we'll land at Batumi. So we want communications menu, 5 air traffic control and airport for Batumi, and we'll just tell them I'm inbound. As you can see, now that I'm lighter, the aircraft handles, well, it's more responsive, and you fly a hell of a lot quicker, so I need to dial the throttle back a little. And that information is just telling me how to get to the runway and what the barometric pressure is. When I get there, I could put that into the altimeter, but I won't bother. They usually require you to hold at pattern altitude for a little while so they can clear the runway, but since there's no other planes or aircraft about, I'll just go straight into land. You can also request an azimuth if you are having trouble finding them, which used to be titled I'm Lost, and I need direction as to where the airfield is. Apparently it's decided to give me the heading for a different runway, which doesn't help. I think heading 249 is sort of that way. There's the runway. We'll need to slow down because we're still doing 600 kilometers an hour. I don't actually know which side I'm supposed to be coming in from, but we're going to come in from this side anyway. And now they see me, so I can request a landing. This isn't going to be the most glorious of landings. Let's put the old air brakes out. Dial the speed back. This isn't going to be a textbook landing at all. We're going to want landing flaps, so that's shift and F. Left shift and F, except yeah, there we go, they're down. Now we're coming in, but we're way too high. So we need to drop the altitude. This is a real hash of a landing procedure. And still going way too quick. I might even balls this up. I would check my landing gear, but I'm going way too fast for landing gear at the moment. I might have to come around and try this again. My landing gear down, and the aircraft starts to shake violently because I'm going too quick. This is going to be painful. My speed of descent is too fast. We flare out, and we just glide over the runway like a knob. There we go. Now we're slow enough to land. Flare up. P for parachute. Fuck, I hope I deployed. I did. That did nothing. We have balls this up. The parachute snapped. See the hole there. And fence. Right. Eject. Eject. Eject is left control and E 3 times. You smack E. And you fly up. And yes, trees are not collidable, so you go straight through them and the plane buggers off. And the fence wasn't collidable either, I don't think. But that is not how to land a plane. That is how to balls up a landing of a plane. And it, I buckled the front landing gear when going over the ground there. But the aircraft didn't catch fire, which is handy. I do believe the parachute was P, yeah, the dragging chute was P, and it just snapped off when I let it out, so that wasn't helpful. I didn't have any hopes of stopping. If your drag chute snaps, it's very difficult to stop. So the plane's over there. I am a pilot. You can't walk around as a pilot, it's very slow. Use the arrow keys to walk around as a pilot. Basically you can poodle around and that's it. Now we're just standing in the middle of a field with the aircraft over in the distance, still running its engine. On the other hand, this lets me demonstrate the respawn mechanic. If you have it turned on in the options, it's on by default. It will turn off if you change all the settings for simulation, because it's obviously not realistic for you to be able to just respawn your plane. You can do it whenever, even when you crash and die. You press right shift, right control and tab, and it will respawn your aircraft. Back to how the mission started the aircraft. You can start on the runway cold like this, with everything off. You can start on the ramp with everything switched on, the engines going. You can start on the runway ready to take off with your engines going, which is the most common startup for missions and campaigns. Or otherwise you can start in the air on the way to your target with very little time to know what is going on. And that concludes the SU-25T. Don't try and land like me. My landing skills in the SU-25 are pretty poor. I say pretty poor. I very rarely walk away, I'll put it that way. Usually due to crosswind. But, yeah, it's not as stable as the A-10. And that'll about do it. The aircraft is actually easier to land if you come in from further away and a bit of a lower altitude than I did. I may have to demonstrate that again at some point, but this video is running on a bit now, so I shall end it here. And the next video I will do a startup tutorial of the A10. It's the A10C. So look out for that one. I've been your host. Fuck it. I shall put that in. Thank you for watching. Please like and rate and comment. You can subscribe for more, and I'm out.